3v3 is the most competitive game mode in Shadowfight Arena, and yet I feel as if many people struggle not because they're bad at the game, but oftentimes because they don't know how to build a team. I play Shadowfight Arena at the highest level in the US server, so I like to consider myself at least somewhat qualified to give advice. This video is dedicated to teaching you how to build a Shadowfight Arena 3v3 team and push rank easier. For your convenience, I have split this video into chapters in case you're more experienced. And before we start, if you want to see more guys like this, like and subscribe. Without yapping anymore, let's get on with it. To start, let's talk about trades. Trades are an essential part of how you play the 3v3 game mode, and if I were to define it, a trade in 3v3 is when both you and your opponent lose a character, essentially a 1-for-1. I'm talking about trades because this is very much important to understand the rest of the terminology in this video and team building theory. Moving on, many factors weigh into a trade. However, if you eliminate their first character, you now know when you pick your next character who they're playing with, and then adjust accordingly. Thus, whoever wins the first round usually has a huge advantage. However, oftentimes games are not as linear. On the contrary, there are resources, such as shadow energy, health, or abilities. Let's say your opponent takes out your first character and you now pick Ironclad. If you then quickly eliminate their first character and move on to the next, this means that you probably have a few advantages. You have some shadow energy, you have basically full health, and you would have stubbornness charges. This means that even if you lost the first round, your character has a few more advantages going into the third round. With this in mind, we can characterize trades into three types. First off is a neutral trade. The example with Ironclad would be considered a neutral trade. While your opponent had important information and picked their second character accordingly, you have resources that make your character stronger. Like Ironclad has his stubbornness charges and more shadow energy, an advantage that their second character does not have. Now let's talk about what a positive trade is. Let's say at this round you not only eliminate their second hero, but also take out half the HP of their third hero with just Ironclad. This is a positive trade for you, as you have a now fresh hero while theirs is half dead. You only needed one hero to take out 1.5 of theirs. And vice versa, let's flip the sides and now you are your opponent. In this scenario, you've lost half your HP while they have a full hero. You spent 1.5 heroes to just take out one of theirs. This situation is not ideal, and you've lost a load of your resources just to take out Ironclad. Thus, this can be called a negative trade for you. These are the fundamentals of trading, which you will need to think about when you play against opponents, so you can quantify how good of a situation you're in. Also, I'll bring up these terms a shitload in this video. Now this is where actual team building comes in. There are a million ways to organize a cast of Shadowfight Arena, but I've organized them in a way that makes team building easy. I've split them up into 4 fundamental roles, along with some other roles I'll specify later. But let's talk about the fundamental roles that I have thought up of first. Now first we will talk about starters. As the name suggests, these are characters that you want to use first, or start with, in a team. Their only goal is to secure the first trade and take out the first hero. They're not built to survive, but only deal damage as quickly and efficiently as possible. So this goes back to the concept that I talked about earlier about the first round being incredibly important in a 3v3 game. For example, let's take a character like Lynx. Lynx deals a lot of damage and has many combos. Even if he has a healing talent, it isn't that game breaking. Thus, usually he will end rounds with very low health. This makes him perfect as a starter, as he can take out the first character and give you the information on who they pick next, allowing you to counter pick accordingly. It's important to be confident with your starter, much more than your other characters. Oftentimes games are decided by who wins the first round. A bad starter can ruin the entire game and force it into a losing scenario, even if you didn't necessarily play bad. Next up, we will talk about counters. Counters get their name from quite literally countering their opponent in some fundamental aspect. often eliminating a part of their kit. For example, Kate burns shadow energy, making it so that characters who rely on shadow energy can't use a portion of their abilities, making the game easier to win. Counters heavily prefer being played second or third, and I heavily recommend playing these characters as they can help you win games much easier. This is because even if you may not be better than your opponent in terms of skill, by making their characters weaker, you are also making them weaker as a player. The third class I'll talk about is the tanks. As you probably guessed, these are the characters that have a lot of health or healing and use this to survive longer. An example of this is King of the Legion. King of the Legion can heal off of shadow moves, giving him a consistent healing source. Additionally, he also has an afterlife ability, which allows him to live much longer, being able to survive entire rounds after his health bar has already depleted. All in all, he's built to survive. Tank characters excel in all roles, but are usually used second and third. This is because of their survivability being used to put up a last stand against the opponent. And these are usually the so-called comeback heroes. Next up, let's talk about the traders. Trader characters are, again, exactly as the name says, are characters that specialize in securing trades. These characters will have some sort of large source of damage or some way to gain resources to enter the third round or maybe even the fifth round with an advantage. For example, let's take Monkey King. Monkey King's fifth talent, Subtle Imitation, allows him to become stronger by either buffing his health, attack damage, or Jingu damage. If the opponent's first character is on low HP after you lost the first round, Monkey King can quickly finish them off and enter the third round with more amplified stats, giving him an edge against the opponent. And as the category suggests, these characters heavily prefer going second or third. Those were the fundamental roles, but what happens when you have a character that does all of these and fits into every role? That is what we like to call an all-rounder. All-rounders can be used in any order, albeit being possibly weaker in a certain role compared to other, more specific role characters. For example, let's take Helga. Helga has formidable damage, creating chains up for shining dashes to deal great damage, making her a good starter option, though not the best. You can easily get resources for her shining dashes, only needing a few hits to charge it, making it so that going second she has an advantage that is easy to obtain, though not that noticeable. She also counters shadow users, being able to passively damage them if they enter shadow form, albeit not stopping them in any way unless they're at low health. And lastly, she has an afterlife ability and consistent healing, making her survive a lot and making her a solid tank. Thus, because Helga fits into all these categories, in my opinion, she is an all-rounder. And while she might seem like a fair example, oftentimes all-rounders are the strongest characters in the game, as they're not only incredibly versatile, but also make teams have better options and better matchups. For example, E2, Sarge, Gideon, and King of the Legion are considered some of the best in the game right now, and all of them can fit as all-rounders. Here are some more niche, hybrids, and subclasses of the previous, more fundamental roles. Starting off with the pseudo all-rounder, these are characters that, while they are considered all-rounders, they don't necessarily counter a certain character. Like, they don't disable a part of their kit. In the same way that maybe Kate burns shadow energy or Helga counters shadow forms to some level, characters like King of the Legion don't really do that. Characters like Gideon don't really do that. So while they are still good at being played in many roles, I wouldn't call them a counter. Thus, they are known as pseudo all-rounders. And here are just some other niche hybrid options where they're just two roles combined. Keep in mind that while you can brute force a character into being played a certain way, this is just how I believe they are played best. Here's a complete image of all the characters and their played roles, if you want to screenshot it. If you have any questions, by the way, about why I put a certain character where, just comment down below and I'll answer as best as I can. There are also other factors to obviously consider. You should consider how reliant your team is on shadow energy, though I don't think it should be much of an issue, and you can change accordingly without me telling you what to do, as the game literally tells you this, like the starting tips, or like when you load up a game. Additionally, this is something that you'll just find out by playing the game naturally. Just make sure that your team doesn't hard lose against like some characters. Now we're going to talk about some sample team compositions, now that you understand the rules. So I'm going to make some very easy formulas. Some guy once said that if you give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day. And if you teach him how to fish, he'll eat for his life. That is the idea that I had behind this video, as I want it to last longer and not exactly be like, play these specific 3 characters because they're good right now. I want you guys to be able to make teams yourself for even maybe if the game lives that long, like a year from now. Starting off with my recommended team composition, I want you guys to have a starter, a dedicated counter option, and some type of all-rounder. This team is great. It is guaranteed to get wins as long as you're okay at the game. The idea is that you play the starter, then answer with either the counter or the general solution, and win accordingly. I think if I gave 100 players this team composition, most of them should be successful. Moving on, we have the counter team. This team will be a starter, a counter, and a counter. The idea of this team is to be 90% confident in your starter. 70 or 80% will not cut it. You win the first round, and then counterpick your opponent based off what characters they choose, getting easy wins after the first round. Now, this is a good team because you essentially just work around your opponent. The downside is that if you lose the first round, you can't counterpick the opponent anymore. So at this point, you either gamble on a miracle or you lose. Now we have a momentum team, and this is going to be a starter, and an all-rounder or some type of starter. Like the name suggests, this is a very fast-paced team that tries to get one hero out, die, get the next out, dies, and get the last one out for a win. This is what I think a lot of lower ranked players often play, as they believe that getting damage equals good, and good equals keep. The problem with this type of team is that you will just have to be better than the opponent to win. If you're even similar in skill level, you'll lose. Oftentimes, counter heroes will rip teams like this up as well. I only recommend this team if you're trying to have fun, or rank grind quickly after a break where you feel like you're better than your opponents and just want trophies fast. Obviously, these aren't the only teams that you can play. If you want, you can play 3 all-rounders and call it a day. The point of this video is to have a better idea of what to think about when building a team, past just having a non-shadow user or picking around what people often play. I want to give you, my viewers, a better idea of how to play and understand the game. Check out my other videos for tips or high-range Shadowfight gameplay. And if you want to see more guides like this, make sure to like and subscribe. Have a good day, everybody. I hope to see you around.